Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of ECC Essentials. I am Halcyon with the Denise Amberly Foundation, and today we are talking video in 911, video to 911. I feel like I say it differently every time I say it. We have Sondra with us today, and I will let her introduce herself in just one moment. But I want to invite you guys to pop in the chat, let us know where you're viewing from. If you have any questions already, please feel free to throw them in there or in the Q&A. We can utilize both. But I will go ahead and I will pass it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thank you. And I hope my internet's not freezing. It may be. A little bit about myself, just a high overview. My name is Sondra Wesley. Thank you so much for having me today and being able to address everyone who's able to attend. My professional background is I've done about 3 decades in public safety. 23 of those were in a 911 centers, small to mid-size, where if you were willing to do something, they were willing to let you. So over the years, I've worn many hats. I was always very fond of sieges, and NCIC was a true niche for me. So I always loved it. But I was everything from addressing coordinator, up the ranks, and eventually director. And I left the 911 center to go teach at the Department of Criminal Justice Training, which is a state mandated training here in Kentucky. And I stayed there until I retired from state government. Went to work the very next day doing implementation projects for criminal justice aspects. And then I've been with Prepared for about a year and a half. So I have really been in hundreds of 911 centers, teaching and talking and listening to success stories about video to 911. So I'm happy to share what I've learned over the last year and a half.
That's awesome. And it looks like for those of us viewing this, your video is cutting out, but I can hear your audio perfectly. So
Okay.
no worries on that front. I am always also impressed by anybody who enjoys NCIC and CJIS because that is so not my area of interest and I kind of avoid it at all costs. So I'm also impressed by that. But again, we heard talk about, video. So now that, you've been in so many centers, coming from a center, what challenges have you seen in your time that now video is, something that we can look to address some of those challenges?
Oh, it's countless, really, from all the years in there. If we think about when we're taking calls from callers, right, you are absolutely just held captive or really just blindfolded and have to rely completely on what the caller is telling you. We're covering our agency CYA, right? And we're giving that out exactly as it's been given to us. However, callers are not always forthcoming, and that's not always intentional. Sometimes it is. They're going to give you the best version of their story, but sometimes it's how they perceive that call to be or that situation that they are not very experienced in. So they may, if you was to take a call, let's say a medical call of a broken leg. Well, to me, that may be very traumatic if I've never had a broken leg. And I may describe that as there's been a giant amputation here. Get the helicopters to get me to the hospital. Where in the 911 world, that's pretty just, the daily routine. So the information that we receive from callers can be somewhat distorted. Also, just what we envision in our minds. I say that since the day we sit down and put on a headset, we've envisioned these calls from the descriptions given to us from the caller. And a lot of times we're wrong. I thought that I was really keen in to where my responders was going. I knew what was happening, but do we really? And I had an epiphany about a year ago, and I use this in my training quite a bit. And so some the people may have heard it before, but one was a call from an agency that they responded to a vicious dog complaint. And the scenario was there was a delivery driver trying to make a delivery, encountered this vicious dog, went back, was afraid he was going to get in trouble, wanted a police report. Dispatch sends them out there. Okay. So then I'm thinking, okay, I'm with you. I'm following your story here. I'm tracking with you. So what kind of dog is it? Of course, I didn't think pit bull. I thought Chihuahua or Jack Russell Terrier, right? Or what did the house look like? Or what did the driveway look like? Or who was this owner that had this vicious animal? So I had envisioned all of this. And when they actually sent me the picture, it was a full-size poodle. Okay. not looking vicious. And this was the actual picture that was obtained from the caller. But not only that, the whole scenario that I had envisioned was off. The owner was standing there tending to her flower garden wearing lavender, which was not in part of my envision. Everything was nice, neat. And a matter of fact, my house was scarier than theirs. So I thought that that was a great illustration that, sometimes we are just kind of confounded by what we think is happening. If we're able to see what's going on scene, that is a completely different scenario with the situational awareness that then we can pass on to our field responders.
I always think of like those accidents that people call in, and I'm like ready to get the helicopter on standby, and an officer, deputy, whoever gets out there, and they're like, this is going to be property damage only. Like, it's not even 1,000. They're going to exchange information, and you're like, that
Exactly.
is not the picture they painted for me on the phone.
And then you hear those complaints from the field responders saying that call is nothing like what dispatch told me it was. We have all heard that. Well, dispatch told you what they were told, but now you get to see that for yourself. And I believe that it's really, really empowering for the dispatchers.
Yeah. I also often tell people, like, in our job, I fully believe information is the name of the game. So I know that there's some hesitation to video in 911, but to me, it's more information. And we can never, we talk about when you're call taking, you want to get relevant information, which is completely true. But to an extent, like, we can never have too much information if it's relevant.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, even with most video platforms, but I know certainly with Prepared, is that we offer a blurred feature. That no one has to see anything that they don't want to, but it is still captured so it retains an evidentiary value on down the road.
Right. And from my experience talking to people, and maybe you can talk to, as you visited, I think sometimes one of the biggest things when we're talking about this is just have a plan beforehand. Because if you just put it in and have people use it, there are going to be a lot of questions and frustrations and, people not sure about it. But when you really outline things beforehand, so is there anything specific that you've seen agencies do, or even you recommend agencies do before bringing in the technology to help it be a little easier of a transition or implementation?
Well, I think training is key. So many times they come in and say, here's a new product, use it. And they really don't feel comfortable using it yet. The implementation may have just dropped it in your lap and that was it. Where if they really have a nice sandbox environment to feel comfortable with it, because we know when we get stressed, we're going to revert back to what we're comfortable with. I think we may have lost Halcyon, so give her just a second to gather back in. And it is probably my internet connection, not hers. So my apologies for that.
Okay. I believe that I'm back.
You are.
Okay. Hopefully you didn't mess anything up. But diving back into it, you mentioned training is important. Is there anything else kind of specifically to help people prepare?
No pun intended, right?
Right.
No, I do think that they need to think about policy, simply because I'm a big policy person. Give them some guidance on how to use it. But I've seen agencies go both ways. I've seen them say, yes, we want to see how this is going to work for us before we put this on paper and go through the whole policy process. Or some people want policy up front. You can do soft rollouts to where if you just want the supervisors using it, or should you want to go ahead and roll it out to all dispatchers at once. And it really just depends on each agency. They get to choose when they want to use it. And I think that that's really important that agencies understand, you may not want to use this on a basic life support transport. Why would you use it for that? But you get to decide when you want to use it. It's a dispatcher initiated action. It's not that you're just sitting there and all of a sudden a video comes into you. You're determining, yes, this would be beneficial on this non-injury accident or this fight in progress, whatever the call type may be, that yes, I need to know more about what's happening. So I think it's important that agencies realize that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because if nothing else, I think sometimes we think policies, we think what we should and shouldn't do and punishment and those types of things. But more than anything, it just makes it very clear on like the guidelines, which relieves stress to know, like you
Yes.
said, like what we need to be watching, what we don't. And I also always just picture too, like, the serious crimes, they wouldn't do it, but I'll get, getting those people having worked at the state level who are like on the side of the interstate, like holding it up to the signs, like, this is what I see. I'm lost. Can you help me?
Absolutely. Of course, we have lots of different integrations with Rapid SOS and What Three Words, and a lot of different integrations as well, like most agencies are working toward right now. But when they're a prime example, and we just had a great case where there was a couple of juveniles got a little close to the cliff when they was walking with their mother, and they actually, one slid down an 80-foot cliff, and then the other one was stuck at about 60-foot high. So
Wow.
they were able to capture their location, but still being able to see, okay, no, this is a cliff edge versus, oh, no, they're just on a platform. When you're able to see exactly what's happening, you can then determine if you want to upgrade that response, what resources are you going to have, especially if it's maybe a complicated rescue, like a Hangle rescue or a swift water, whatever the case may be, that you're able to determine what resources that you're going to need out there. And it's also great to use for the responders, because you can then pass that information straight on to the responders. So they're seeing this in lifetime the same as the dispatcher is. So there's a lot of real benefits to it that it's coming. It's coming to an agency near you. And I think that there's almost going to be a public outcry for it, for almost an expectation of service, really. So I suggest embrace it, because this next gen thing is not a new concept. The video to 911, we've been talking about it 23 years now, and it's finally here. So I know sometimes change is pain, but if this can help us keep our dispatchers in the seat, take some of their stress off of them, let us retain our folks, why wouldn't you?
Yes, definitely. Retention is a huge topic right now. So anything that, can help us with that is, of course, so important. And I apologize. I had a question. Oh, there we go. I was like, it left my mind. It is back. I know that, like, some years ago, text was a big thing, right? And so there was anxiety around, are we just going to be flooded with text messages because more and more people are texting, and it's no longer, paying per text message, which just seems wild to think that we used to do that. But is it something where you think it's, there's those anxieties, but it's not going to be as overwhelming as maybe some people are kind of feeling like?
Yes, I think that's a great point, really. We do hear that. Some people are concerned because it's new, it's something different. I was the same way with the text to 911. I thought, oh, we're going to be inundated with calls, and then it turns out it's only 1% of the time, right, that it's a text to 911 situation. So, of course, we offer that on our platform as well. But what we find out is that it's the everyday calls. It's the non-injury accidents. It's the barking dog complaint. It's the, okay, you've got a sinkhole that's caved in. Whatever the usage would be in your area, it's your everyday calls. It's the animal complaints, the domestics. It's the same calls that we all share across the country that you use it the most typically on. Are you going to get those kids on the side of the cliff? Sure, but they're not the everyday calls, just like they're not for your everyday 911 calls as well. So, and then of course, again, you get to choose. But I think that I like to use the saying, if there's an accident on the side of the road and you drive past it, do you look?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. If there's an injury on the basketball court or the football field, do you watch the replay? I do.
I try to. Not if it involves a broken bone. There's a broken bone on that. And other ones, yes.
And that's the beautiful thing, though. You get to decide if you want to see or not. So and that's what I recommend for most agencies, to put it in their policy. Yes, use it, but if not, just write a memo why you didn't use it. But it's, again, up to each individual agency to use it to what their staff is going to be comfortable with. We want to make their life easier, not more stressful.
Yes. And I know, through the foundation, we work on consistency across the industry with training and QA. And we definitely want to make sure that the level of service is consistent. But it is something, like you said, where agencies, kind of have to put in that front work to make sure that this is our policies on it. This is how we're going to operate with it. By no means is it something that, kind of comes in and just gets dropped there. And it's not, out of a box where we're like, okay, you have to do this exactly like this.
I agree. And, if it can bring our field responders home of an evening, because I watched a video that was available that I was able to pick up on something that was there, and it gets somebody home of a night, it's really life changing for what they are able to see, especially if they're watching it. Maybe they're a two-man crew on a fire apparatus or an EMS truck, and they're seeing what's happening as they're responding. That's priceless. It really is. And if they have a better understanding of what's happening and they're able to prep before they get on scene as well, I'll take that all day long. So I don't see the downside to it, especially when you get to choose or you get to blur and then you get to save this, and who knows what they'll do with them in the court system, but at least that information's retained. And it also kind of closes a loop, really, that maybe a dispatcher wasn't comfortable seeing something in the beginning, but later there's like, yeah, I kind of want to see that. They can always go back and do that. So it does offer a lot of different functionalities, not only just the video aspect, but the pass it on straight to the responders that they can view it on their MDTs or even on their cell phone while they're en route. But there's another case use that I find pretty impressive, is that responders are now sending information back to the dispatch center. Like, we've had several that have multi-day fires where they've had giant fires for scrap yards, even the volcano eruptions over in Hawaii. The responders would send video back to dispatch just to keep them updated on the status. But then that also leaves a document trail for them as well, that this is where the progression or how it de-escalated over this amount of time. So it really does serve them very well as also.
Yes, and I'm for anything that will help my field responders give me information that I need or that will be helpful, because I love them. Fully respect the job they do, is sometimes their communication is not what I need it to be, especially, kind of the information flow back to dispatch leaves a little to be desired at times.
Yes, and if you're able to actually, you've took the call, you've dispatched it out, but we always wonder what's happening. And if they're able to send you that information back, that you're seeing what's happening on scene, even from your field responders who, that you're asking them to send that back to you, it's fabulous. And it really does help us with our mental health as well, because there's about 5 great benefits to that. And I can refer anyone to some of the academic papers on that on the live stream into 911 if anybody's curious to see it. Be happy to supply those for them. But it's, like I said, it's a new technology. It's coming. The people that we work with love it, because trust me, I talk to them on the daily. So they're really enjoying it and huge advocates for it. So I encourage everyone to embrace the technology.
Yes, I think just getting familiar with it, I think a lot of the anxiety and fears come from the unknown. And we were talking before, off air about, I remember especially when it was rolling out and people were like, oh, I can't do that. I don't want them, I make too many facial expressions. And so just even educating people as far as it's not FaceTime, little things like that, it just getting the information out there, I think goes a long way in helping people be more willing to embrace it.
Yes. And one of the things that we have found is that they're very big on, of course, we do the text where you can chat back and forth with a caller. Not that true text to 911, we do that as well, but where you can still communicate with a caller, even if you choose not to do video, because we know so many times people are going to respond to a text message quicker than they are a phone call, especially if you have those 911 hang up calls and so forth. So, and it seems like some of the agencies are more that quicker to embrace that maybe than the video, because they're still nervous about video, but just like the police were with their video, with their body cams and so forth. But it is really an evolution of our industry, and it's something to be not fearful of, but excited for.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I try to keep in mind is video is the way of the world. Like that's, if anybody is like me and you've watched videos on Facebook and you're like, did anyone put down a phone and call 911? They very well might have, but so often it seems like we're so quick to pull out a phone to record things. And so in order to kind of stay relevant, which, we're 911, we're for emergencies. We don't necessarily need to stay relevant, if you will, in that sense that we're going to be here. But I think it does, help us make more connections with our communities when we can show that, hey, we're relevant. We have this technology that the rest of the world is using just in general.
Absolutely true. And I've made this statement several times. My daughter went to Japan for work last year, and I could FaceTime her every day. But dispatch centers can't get a live stream. They couldn't across the street. That was a problem, that the private realm of industry had far surpassed what we were doing in the 911 centers. I mean, really. And it's quite sad. And we used to complain that there was not enough technology focused on dispatch. Now there seems like there is a lot. It's almost overwhelming sometimes. Who do you choose and stuff? But I'm thankful for it personally, because I remember a time when nobody was paying attention to dispatch centers. So I'm thankful that everybody's kind of reshifted focus.
Yes, it's very true. It's nice to have that information. Selena from Lyon County says we use Prepared for a lot. I just know I enjoy seeing the kind of use cases that come out of Lyon County. They have a Facebook page if anybody is interested, but I know they've put some stuff up about how they've used video, and it just is interesting to watch and see all the ways that you can do it. Especially, I think one of the first ones was a lost dog, which sounds so simple, and you think, do I really need this for a lost dog? But it just takes the you have somebody call in and say, hey, there's a dog. And you go, okay, what color is it? What does it look like? Does it have a collar? When you can just say, okay, I'm going to send you a link, send me a picture. And, you kind of cut 5 minutes off of your phone call.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially when you think about protocols. If you go through protocols, whether they're a can from a vendor or there's something that you all have in-house or in-state, the amount of information you have to take off of a list of protocols that could almost be summed up in about 10 seconds of looking at a video. I mean, really, you can spend 5 minutes doing questioning or just do a protocol sequence or just see what's happening on the video and then just go straight into it. But I remember the one that you're talking about the dog on their Facebook page. So thank you, Lyon County, for that. But if you think about it, when you're scrolling Facebook, if you're Facebook scrollers, I'm a TikToker anymore, but do you actually read the pieces, or are you scrolling pictures?
Right.
If you put a picture of like maybe a water main break, avoid the downtown area, or a semi has jackknife on the interstate, and you put a picture of that versus avoid the area, you're going to get more responses by somebody actually seeing a visual image. So It can be great community outreach.
Yes, definitely. It does, because that gets their attention. It's kind of like driving by an accident. They see an accident on their screen and they go, oh, what's that? Where's that at? Instead of like, oh, avoid the area. Okay. Keep scrolling. Like, let me find more funny videos.
Yes, exactly. And I think that it would probably be interesting, even if you was to do a experiment on that, to see how many people actually comment or tag someone else in it versus just not putting an image with it at all. So, but there's all kinds of ways that it can be used, because one of the, not only the video part of it is that you are able to upload media that's already been captured. So maybe it was a screenshot of a harassing communication over cell phone, and they've sent you in that picture. Now you have that as an evidence piece that you can retain. Or they've threatened self-harm, and you can capture that information where they had made those statements if you're having to get a mental health petition and those type of things. So there's all kinds of different ways to use it that we just didn't have before. If you think about it, you can have a picture of a missing person before officers ever get on scene, and you're not held to the same standards as what maybe your Department of Transportation does for their driver's license photos, because that's not where this image came from. Right. So there are all kinds of great ways to use it.
And the mental health piece, it doesn't change the response by any means. But I just think of, those third-party calls for suicidal callers, and you say, okay, have they made any suicidal statements? Like, what have they said? And kind of how much more clarity that would provide if you could get a screenshot of that text message before officers get out there. So I can tell them, explicitly, this is what they said, instead of kind of the like, well, they said they didn't want to live anymore, however the caller wants to put it, because sometimes those callers, maybe exaggerate it, or they don't give you all the information, not intentionally, but they're just not, maybe in the right frame of mind to give you that. So those, I think, too, are another great, potential use to really, again, not change a response, but just clarity.
And I know we're getting close to time, but I do want to say that we have a lot of instances where maybe there's a TCPR and that you're able, because you're seeing what's happening on scene, that you're able to give those callers instructions, because we do it all the time and we just assume that they're following your instructions to the T, and most of the time they're not. They're doing belly compressions and they think they're doing great, and you can't tell that they're not. But now that you can see what's happening on scene, you can give them better instructions and feedback and coaching. So like I said, there's lots of different ways for it, and I'm going to go ahead and for a moment and let you take some questions if anybody has any.
Yeah. Does anybody have any? Feel free to put them in there. And the topic itself, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go, especially as far as specifics and those types of things. I saw Sherry is requesting info, the references for the live stream. So I will get you that email address, Sondra. If anybody else would like those, feel free. What is your email?
My email is just Sondra, Sondra, at prepared911.com.
Okay. I will
and
put
all of you all are more than happy to. It's just Sondra at prepared911.com.
Perfect. I have that in the chat too. If anyone would like to reach out to Sondra directly. Thank you all for your patience with our technical difficulties today. Hopefully you're still able to get some good information out of there. But it doesn't look like we have any questions.
I do want to mention, though, if I can, and I know this is a little off topic, but just for anybody, because I'm very passionate, I think every dispatch center, I'm on a mission to tell them all about it, just so you'll know. But one of the reasons I joined in Prepare is because it's the live product is absolutely free for all dispatch centers. That was important to me. So it doesn't matter if you've got a great big multi-million-dollar budget or no budget, we can get that into you, because there's no software to buy, no equipment to buy, nothing, no implementation fees, nothing. We're here to try and to serve 911 centers. So that's my mission.
Yeah. And just in general, even, it never costs anything to contact somebody for information, no matter the company. I know it's a little overwhelming, and sometimes you're like, but then I'll get emails and then they'll try to sell me stuff, and that may or may not be true. But never, be worried about just reaching out for more information, because so many of the companies across the industry are, have people like you, Sondra, who are just like, listen, we just want to make sure that you guys have what you need to do your job and do it well and do it to the best that we can do it with the technology we have. So just another side note too, make sure we're reaching out to people, because there's some great ones like you who want to help however they can. But we're coming up on half an hour. Thank you again, Sondra, for chatting with us. Again, such good information on the topic. We will actually not be back in 2 weeks. We will not have an episode on the 15th as the team preps for the National NINA Conference. Hopefully we will see some of you guys there. We will be at booth, I think it's 533. Tina DeCola is also teaching a session on human trafficking on Tuesday. So if you are there, be sure to stop by the booth and say hi. We would love to meet you guys, see the ones I already know, and just chat. I know, Sondra, you will be there as well.
I actually have a prior commitment, but there will be teams. I know there will be people from my team there, and I will probably catch you all at APCO if anybody's going, but down in Nashville. But I'll have to skip out on Grapevine. But thank you, each one of you, for what you do. I hope you can go, have a great time, learn lots of good information, meet lots of vendors, and Halcyon, thank you again for everything that you're doing there at the foundation.
Yeah, so stay tuned to our ECC Essentials Facebook page or the main foundation page for more information on our first episode back after NINA. That will be in July, and I don't want to give you a date because I'm afraid I'll give you the wrong one off the top of my head. But we will be back. We've got some great speakers coming up. We've got Adam Tim on the docket, as well as some others, including Cassie Sexton. And so you do not want to miss those episodes. that is all I have for today. Again, thank you for joining us. Reach out if you have any questions at all, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your Thursday.